If you don't have that craving, it will not happen. And that's how our bodies, that's how the psychology and the chemistry of our minds work, is when we sense a reward, we will crave it and we will do anything it takes to get there.
Chubby kid from the Southwest transforms his mind and body, busts into Andy Lopez's office, which starts a journey that allows him to impact the world through deep performance insights. Today I am joined by Will Armijo. Will Armijo is the owner and the founder of Willpower Transformation Systems. Will, man, welcome.
Thank you. I really appreciate you having me on. I'm super excited to do this. I feel like we're going to be able to give the audience some great content here.
Well, man, I'm looking forward to it, man. So, Will, tell us a little bit about your background, your journey, and just kind of how you came to be as a transformational coach, a lifestyle coach, and your work with athletes and the audience that you work with.
Yeah, absolutely. So the cool thing is all of this started for me at a really young age. I mean, I was 14 years old. I thought I was going to be, baseball was my life. I lived for baseball. I grew up in a small town. I was literally the only left-handed pitcher in the town. So all of you people out there listening that play baseball, you know what I'm talking about. Like, I was the only dude. So I was like bred for pitching for baseball. Like, that's just what I did. So when I was around 14 years old, the problem I had was I was super overweight. And I'll get into how this all relates to what I'm doing today, but I was super overweight and all I wanted to do was play baseball. So I knew that in order to be the best baseball player I could be, I needed to be in the best shape. I need to be in better shape than anybody else. That's the only way that I was going to be the best. So I started doing like crazy diets. I remember getting my first protein powder at GNC. It was chocolate. I hate it. It was the nastiest thing I ever had. I remember like jump roping in the garage. I remember like, all right, if I want to be the best, I got to wake up before everybody else. I would go run at like 6 a.m, just trying to lose some weight. So I became obsessed with this process of becoming the best performing athlete, because all I knew how to do was pitch, and I was left-handed, and that was my dream. So yeah. I did everything I could so I became obsessed with that process, which led into high school. I moved high schools. In the middle of high school, I moved to a big city. I moved to Phoenix, Arizona from New Mexico. Big culture shock for me. And then I went and I played at multiple colleges. And I played at junior college. I went to the Junior College World Series. I played Division II level baseball when I finished out my career. But during the middle of that career is when I had a huge turning point. It was probably the biggest turning point in my entire life. And we could get into that in a little bit. But as far as finishing, what happened was when I got into college, I realized that I think I had a more of a passion for exercise and nutrition and sports performance and what that contributed to the human body and how that can alter anybody through nutrition and exercise. So I became more obsessed with training than I did actually pitching. So that's what kind of transitioned me into my career today. So then I ended up graduating college. I ended up, once I got done with baseball in college, I ended up transferring that energy, that drive into another sport, which was bodybuilding.
How the heck did you make that transition? Like what led to that, man?
Yeah, so I want to get into one of the biggest turning points in my life. And this is what changed everything. And this is other people probably experience this same situation in different forms in their life. And this is where you're either going to take route A or you're going to take route B. You're either going to go one way or the other. It's that life-altering moment. So when I was in college, actually right before I met Josiah, I was playing junior college baseball here in Arizona. We were really good. Well, the problem that I had was being so at a young age, being the only left-handed pitcher in the town. You could imagine I was overused completely. My arm was overused. It was abused.
Hmm.
Nobody had any type of knowledge of rehabilitation or anything. So I went into college with tendonitis my entire career with severe tendonitis, but it was never to a point where I needed surgery. So then midway in college, it finally got to the point where I needed Tommy John surgery. So all of you out there listening, you all know about Tommy John. So I just had it at a really bad time, which is in the middle of college. So that does affect recruiting. That does affect your where you go. That does affect, that took me out of the starting rotation. I mean, when I came back into baseball, I had to be a reliever. So anyway, I get done with junior college baseball. I start working with this pitching coach who's supposed to be one of the better pitching coaches. He's got a lot of connections. He really knows what he's doing. So I went for the best because I wanted to be the best, and that's been my philosophy, like I said, since I was 14. So anyway,
Hmm.
this dude tells me, "Hey, I need you to, I was done with junior college baseball. This dude tells me, "Hey, I need you to go down to U of A and play in Tucson at U of A." And I'm like, U of A, like they are, they're ranked nationally. They're one of the best teams. I think they've won the College World Series a number amount of times in the past couple of years. And he's like, "I need you to go down to U of A. I need you to go to walk-on tryouts." This was 2 weeks before school started. I had to go down there by myself, get a one-bedroom studio 2 weeks before it started. Mind you, like I said earlier in the conversation, I was obsessed with nutrition and exercise. So my
Hmm.
major was pre-med. I was a pre-med student at U of A
Wow.
2 weeks before school started, living by myself in a studio. I knew nobody. I did not know one person at that university, and all I cared about was making that baseball team. So here's what I did. As soon as I moved down there, I realized, all right, got to work out, got to get my diet right. I got to get a training schedule. Well, what I realized is I didn't have anybody to play catch with. So that was a big deal for me. Like, who am I going to, I have nobody to throw with. Like, this has got to be on my schedule. I don't know what to do. So what I did was I went to the store and I bought 2 buckets of baseballs. And every day I would go to the park and I would throw against the fence every single day. That's how I would warm up. I would just scoot back, go pick up the balls, scoot farther back, go pick up the balls, scoot farther back. And then what I would do is I would get on the pitcher's mound and I'd set the bucket up behind home plate and I would set up a video camera. I went and bought a video camera, set up the video
Yeah.
camera, I'd record myself, and I would go home and I would analyze myself and I would compare myself to some of the pitchers that I felt that I resembled that were in the major leagues. So I was doing this every day, going to the gym, rehab every day, on top of all the homework. And then what I would do, my dad would meet me halfway between Tucson and Phoenix in Casa Grande, and we would play long toss once a week at a park
Hmm.
halfway between the universities. So anyway, I did everything in my power to be the best in that situation. I showed up to walk on tryouts. Walk on tryouts were not for, I think, 2 months after school started. So I did that stuff for 2 months. I had no friends. I didn't go out, nothing. My sole focus was to make this team and go to the major leagues right after. I was going to kill it. So I go to walk on tryouts. I get there, I'm ready. I know that I'm more ready than anybody at that tryout. Like, I've already got it in my head. So I go, I throw a bullpen, and all of you know how that is when you're throwing a bullpen for a bunch of coaches, everybody's just staring at you. I killed it. I hit every spot I needed to hit. I was throwing hard. I thought, all right,
Yeah.
I killed it. So I go and I sit back down in the dugout with all the other people that were there for walk on tryouts. Coach Lopez walks up and says, "All right, thank you guys for coming out, but we're not taking anybody." At that moment, my life stopped. My heart stopped beating. I literally felt my heartbeat skip. I've never felt that feeling in my life. Like, in a moment's notice, my entire course of life has shifted. I am no longer playing baseball. I've been
So
playing
that was
baseball my entire life.
okay. So that was that. So you have all this sweat equity built up in the game. You've trained. You took video of yourself. You included your dad in the process so you can get even more out of your craft. You know your body, your mind. Your spirit was where you wanted it to, and then right there at that moment, you were crushed. You were
Crushed.
crushed. I
I was,
wanna.
go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, so in that moment, the thing was is that nothing went wrong. There was nothing to blame. There was nothing to say, it's because of this I didn't make it. It's because of this I didn't make it. I did everything that I possibly could. I worked. I had no regrets on my work ethic. It all led to that. But what I didn't realize is that moment had a bigger purpose in my life that you just can't see in that moment. You
Mm-hmm.
can't comprehend what's going on yet. But you have to understand that everything has its purpose, regardless of how it seems. And that purpose came to unfold literally the next day after that happened. I didn't grow up with a hard life. I didn't grow up, without good parents or without good support. I had support. I had everything I needed to succeed, but that I didn't realize in that moment in my life was going to go in a different direction. I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't comprehend that. So, and that's what I think a lot of people have a hard time comprehending the moments that they're in. And a lot of people just need to realize you just got to be present in that moment and you have to react. You have to sometimes use your gut instinct and just react to things and not coddle up and curl up in a ball and feel sorry for yourself. Like you just have to react because you can essentially do whatever it is you want to do. So one of the interesting things is what I did the next day. So I went home. I didn't want to call my parents. I didn't want to tell my friends. I was embarrassed. Like everybody thought I was going to be a Major League Baseball player. So the next morning I woke up and I was just like, you know what? You've put in way too much work. You've done too much. You need to know why this didn't happen. So I marched over to Coach Lopez's office and I walked in. His secretary tried to stop me. I walked right past her. His door was shut. I knocked on his door and walked in. The dude was on the phone. Who knows who he was on the phone with? He was like, he looked at me, big ol' office, dude. This dude's got like a serious office, Coach Lopez, man. This thing. So I'm like, he looks at me kind of funny. He's like, can I help you? And I was like, Coach Lopez, I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt, but I need to talk to you for like 5 minutes. I was at walk-on tryouts yesterday. This dude doesn't even know what to do, so he's just like, let me call you back. And he hangs up the phone, and he's like, hey, man, how can I help you? And I go, look, I go, you probably don't even remember me, but I was at walk-on tryouts yesterday. I was one of the pitchers, one of the lefties. He's like, oh, yeah, I absolutely remember you. Dude, you did a great job yesterday. And I'm like, thanks. So then I go, I'm like, oh, okay. So let me ask you, why didn't you guys take me? I'm not asking you to take me. I just want to know why. I want to know how I can get better because I'm not done playing baseball. I'm not done. Even though this may be the end, I'm not done. And I'm not going to go play, whatever ball out there on the side, the co-ed stuff, softball. I ain't doing that stuff. Like, I'm not done. I haven't fulfilled what I needed to fulfill yet. And he said, look, here's the thing. We weren't going to take any walk-ons, but we had to do it by law. We have to have walk-on tryouts. We weren't taking anybody. NCAA changed their rules this year. We actually had to cut 2 of our scholarship athletes for our travel roster that have been here for 3 years on scholarship. He's like, we weren't taking anybody. It didn't matter who showed up. So I was like, wow. I'm like, okay, so what can I do? And he goes, where do you want to play? And I said, well, I can't go out of state because it's too expensive. I got to stay in state. And I'm obviously not going over to ASU because they're another top school in the nation that I'm sure has their team picked out. So my option was Grand Canyon University. So
I want you to stop right there,
yeah.
Will. I want you to stop right there. Just to give the audience a little bit of backdrop, I was actually a strength and conditioning coach at Grand Canyon University when I met Will Armijo as a lefty pitcher. So I just wanted to make sure the audience was aware of that backdrop. Go ahead, Will.
Yeah, absolutely. So I never would have ended up at Grand Canyon if I didn't walk into his office. If I didn't walk into his office, there is no way that I would have even continued to play baseball. And the struggle wasn't over there. So going And doing what I did in his office was something that I didn't think was accepted. I didn't think it was allowed. It was against the norm. It was that turning point in my life where I just didn't, I broke all the rules. And I just said, you got to go do this right now, no matter what happens. And that is what led me to Grand Canyon University. And Grand Canyon University didn't change my life for baseball. It changed the whole course and direction of my life. What I ended up doing with my life and where I am today is because I went to that university because of what I did in Coach Lopez's office. But here's the biggest point to that whole story is I realized that I had the ability to create exactly what I wanted by taking immediate action on something.
And you had the ability to take immediate action on a situation that was not necessarily imposed on you, but you had to deal with. And because you were a problem solver, man, in most places, man, the security would have snatched you up before you even got into Coach Lopez's office, man.
I know. So,
Go ahead, man.
so that moment made me realize that I had the ability to create anything I wanted just by trusting myself and taking action. So that led into a series of events down the road. Yeah, I went to Grand Canyon. I had a great time playing baseball there. I finished it out. But what happened is I met people like you. I ended up, becoming obsessed with the strength and conditioning aspect of things, the nutrition aspect. It introduced me to all the people that were gonna help unfold the opportunities that took place the rest of my life. And I finished baseball there, but when I got done with baseball, I felt done with baseball. I couldn't pursue the major leagues. I was still coming off of that surgery. But I felt that I had a bigger purpose. So I started to understand that my obsession with nutrition and exercise was to help other people with nutrition and exercise. I started to learn that I became obsessed with that process from a younger age. So what that led me to do is go, all right, look, I'm done with baseball because I'm not obsessed with it anymore. I'm actually obsessed with this. And there's a lot of people listening that probably are obsessed with baseball, and they could use this story to help them push themselves further in that sport. Because if you are obsessed with it, that is the biggest attribute that you can have to yourself in doing what it is that you're doing. So that ended up leading me to going and getting my MBA, knowing that I would own a business in health and fitness. So I graduated with my MBA. And then I had another turning point in my life, which came a little bit later. But now today I own my own business and I have global clientele, and I'm doing everything that I want to do on my terms. But everything, all the actions that I take and decisions that I make are a reflection on what I did that day in his office.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. So I want you to, hold on to that story, because I have a feeling that in our conversation today, we're going to be referencing it a lot. So, small town kid, you go through the process of pursuing your dreams. Your dreams get crushed. You stand up and said, "No, I have the ability to create anything that I want." I get the truth from Coach Lopez. The connections are made. You go to Grand Canyon. You get your MBA, and now here you are helping people literally all around the world. So that leads us to this point. You, as we talked about earlier, are the owner and founder of Willpower Transformation Systems, in which you help coach an enormous amount of people to pursue and to realize their fitness dreams as far as body transformation. And when you look at, the internet, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, man, body transformation, all these fitness shows and things like that, they're becoming a really big deal. They're literally taking the world by storm. Why do you think that is?
That's mainly because because nowadays everything revolves around social media. It revolves around pictures. It revolves around visual content. That is where we get all of our information. Look at right now. Nobody even uses. Before, when you wanted information, you'd go to Google. I mean, Google, I mean, it still is your source of all information, but now people go to YouTube. How many times have you
Mm-hmm.
YouTubed something? Like, locked my keys in the car, YouTube.
Yep.
Need to fix this, YouTube. How to do this, YouTube. Everything is visual content. So you think of everything that is social media based, and it's all visual content. So the fitness industry is all about what you see, what you represent, what your
Mm-hmm.
body represents. So it's become so popular because people now have the ability to show the world essentially through a platform exactly what they are. The problem is they show people what they are on the outside and not what they are on the inside. That's the
Oof.
only
Oof.
problem.
Oof. Hey man, you hitting on some notes right now, bro. You hitting on some notes. Hey, because that was the next point that I was gonna make is edited or not, that's what people are doing. Edited or not. They're editing pictures, putting it on there. This is what I have, this is who I am, this is what I own, this is what I represent. And you hit a note right there, man, that resonates with people who, recognize the real, so to speak. So with that said, one of the conversations that I've had with you back in the past is regarding narcissism, regarding selfishness, and in your world, narcissism is a norm. These shows that individuals take part in, the selfishness and it's because let's get to it, man. It's all about you. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And so, would you say that narcissism is a prerequisite to high level performance in your industry, and or I want you to talk about the fine line between arrogance and confidence?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So narcissism in this sport, it's what this sport is pretty much based on. And I will tell you one thing, I do not prep people for bodybuilding shows. Some people think that I do that, but I don't. I actually work with everyday individuals who are just trying to change and better their lives. A lot of the stuff I do is lifestyle based now. Now, I have prepped people for bodybuilding shows, but I know what goes into that because I am in that world and I've been there. And you're right, it's a very self-centered thing, and all you think about is yourself. And here's a problem with bodybuilding or the fitness industry in general. You put in all of this work, you do all this work for it's literally the hardest thing I've ever done. If somebody goes and preps for a bodybuilding show, it will be the hardest thing you've ever done because there's no stepping on and off the field. It's 24/7. You do not step it's like being on the field for 16 weeks and never leaving ever. So
Come on, man. Come on, man. Real quick, real quick. You said this before. You said, "Oh man, bodybuilding, man, that's one of the most mentally tough things you can do in all these shows. That's one of the most mentally tough things." Come on, man. Come on, man. We're talking about a sandwich. You know what I'm saying? A little broccoli. You know what I'm saying? Come on, really?
it is mentally draining, but here's the problem is you do all this work to step on this stage where you have five individuals who have no idea who you are, they have no idea what you did to get there, and they are subjectively giving their opinion on your flaws as a human being. So that can change your psychology of everything. That changes your perspective of life. Like, it is that deep. Because when you meet these people, sometimes, a lot of the times, something's off. Something's off with these people. And that's one of the.
You talking about the judges? You talking about the judges? They're
No,
kind of quirky, a little weird.
I'm talking about the competitors. Some of
Okay,
them are just
yeah.
off in the bodybuilding world. Now here's the thing: is the work that you put in to achieve this physique is something that you have to commit to on a whole nother level. And how does that carry over into sports or anything else? I mean, it's almost the same thing in the sense that the level of commitment it takes to achieve the end result, right? It's all about doing all of this work to achieve the end result, and you become narcissistic in a way that it's for your end goal, which can be carried over into any sport. It's all the work that you put in to win the championship or to win the game or to increase your batting average or to throw harder or to do this. It's all the process that goes into it that leads into the end result, which is essentially a better version of yourself in that sport.
One of the big time topics that we've been hitting on a lot this year is perfectionism in performance. I want you to describe to the audience perfectionism in your eyes and in your craft, and what it can do to you in a negative sense of the word if you get caught up in it.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the biggest problems with the word perfection is that I don't believe you will ever be perfect and in anything that you do. And that's a very, very important topic, because the moment that you feel you are perfect is the moment that somebody will pass you up. It's the moment that you will get passed by somebody else. So you have to understand that all you can be is a better version of yourself every day, every time you're training, every time you're eating either the bad food or the healthy food, whether you're going to make this decision or this decision. Are you contributing to be a better version of yourself? Because essentially what happens is when you first get into anything, whether that's a sport, whether that's bodybuilding, even in business, you go in and you're competing with everybody. You're competing with everybody. And then you start to pick the brains of people who are great at their sport, who are the best in their sport, who what you would consider the perfectionist of that sport. And what you understand is they don't compete with anybody except themselves. They literally have no competition because nobody can match up to them. There's nobody that they're competing with. They are just understanding that they are continuously becoming better versions of themselves, and nobody can keep up with that because they're not comparing themselves to anybody else. They have no competition. All they are is continuously getting better and better and better and better, and nobody can even keep up to that. I mean, look at any of the great athletes in any sport. It's like you can't even compare them to anybody. How do you get yourself in that realm? How do you separate yourself so that everybody perceives you that way? You essentially create that by not having any competition. Like, you are your only competition. If you are a hard worker and a great athlete and you are continuously competing with yourself, you're competing with somebody who's working just as hard as you, which is you. You're not having to compete with the guy who's not working that hard, who may just be better skilled than you are. Oh, so you just work a little bit harder because you just want to work a little bit harder than him when you worked harder than him in the first place. So why don't you just compete with yourself? Now you're working harder than everybody. And then if you have skill on top of the hard work, it's a game changer. You're going to surpass everybody. Nobody will compete with you.
I want to go back to this whole thing. We're talking about peak performance, right? We're talking about being efficient in order to perform at the highest levels of one's capability and ability. And I want to go back to this simple concept of food, right? Food is powerful. Food centers around human existence. It centers around healing, performance, recovery, regeneration.
Yeah, so I mean, food, my emphasis in what I do on a daily basis revolves around food. I tell people, and these are just normal people, but food is the number one priority. Exercise is the number two priority. I tell people, look, I'd rather you miss a day at the gym than miss a day of food prep, because food is so important to the body. Just like you said, it's your body's energy source. And here's the thing with athletes. If you are out there, if your purpose in life is to be a professional athlete, to perform at an elite level, and you're not taking the one thing that actually contributes to your performance, which is food, if you're not taking that seriously, you're not ready for the next level. That is what is going to hold you back, because food does everything. It gives you the energy you need. It gives you the clarity you need. It gives you the focus you need. It recovers the body. If you're training for hours every day, what's the point if you can't recover. Here's what a lot of people don't understand about the gym, and this can relate to any sport. What you do in the gym, you are not actually building muscle. You're actually tearing it down. The same
Exactly.
thing goes on the field. You're not building ligaments and tendons or muscle tissue. You're actually tearing it down. And the harder you work, the more you tear down. What do you think rebuilds that? It's the food, it's the recovery, it's the sleep, it's however, whatever level you want to take it to in any sport is always going to depend on the stuff that you're putting in your body, because that is
Yeah.
going to dictate the level of performance that you have.
So why do you think that there's such a negative, an inverse relationship, you know what I'm saying, that exists, so to speak, with people and food? Like,
Yeah.
I'm trying to get bigger. It comes down to food. I'm trying to lose weight. Oh man, it comes down to food. Oh man, like, I'm suffering from depression. Oh, I gotta go eat some food. Oh man, like, everything, like physiological, psychological, regenerative. This whole thing comes back to, why do you think that there is such an emotional connection with food, man, and in this process? Like, take us into your world. I know you deal with cats that they can't give it up.
Look,
They can't give it up. You know what I'm saying? Like, or they can't stop, or they can't start because of the habitual relationship, negative relationship. Why do you think that is with food?
dude, thank you. You just nailed it right now. It has nothing to do with food. Nothing. It has everything to do with habit. Everything to do with habit. We are creatures of habit. That is how we survive. We love habits. That's why we have a lot of good ones and a lot of bad ones. I know everybody listening to this has bad habits. I know everybody listening has bad habits. You have bad habits. I have bad habits. Everybody has bad habits. We also have good habits. It has nothing to do with food. It has everything to do with how they have been conditioned to think of food and to use food in a habitual way. That
There
is
you
the
go.
that is the relationship. It is a habit. It is triggers. It's cues. You see things. You smell things. You do things that create you to instinctively react to something. And a lot of the times that has to do with food, simply because of how we grew up, because of how we were raised, because of how we were conditioned, what to eat, when to eat, how to eat. You can change your relationship with food when you understand what food does for your body. And then all you have to do is you just have to create new habits that replace the old habits. It's that simple. You cannot just stop, you can't just stop bad habits. It never works. Look at people who are alcoholics, people who are addicted to smoking or addicted to drugs. It's the same thing when it comes to food or any other bad habit. The key is understanding the purpose of what it is that you're doing and the purpose that it has for you, and creating a new habit. So you simply have to create new triggers and new cues that are going to reinforce a new habit that dominates over the old habit. That goes for anything. That goes for food, that goes for performance, that goes for business, anything. Once you can start doing that, that's one of the biggest game changers anybody will have.
That's powerful, and that's well said. I want to switch gears a little bit. Gonna make you work a little bit, man. Gonna make you work. One word. Fill in the blank. The most mentally tough individual has to have what? One word.
Um, Persistence.
Persistence. Fill in the blank. The softest people mentally always do what?
Complain.
It's powerful. For the record, how many shows and competitions have you been a part of individually, and maybe have coached as well? How many? About how many?
I've competed in 9 shows, and I've probably helped 20 people compete in their own shows.
Okay, so with that said, discipline is probably something that ranks high on your list. Explain the importance of discipline. I want you to explain to the audience the importance of discipline, and what are some some easy ways to kind of become more laser like in our discipline?
Discipline, in my viewpoint, relates back, does have a direct influence on the word willpower. So, which is why my company is called Willpower. I believe very, very much so in the power of will. And a lot of that has to do with discipline, because discipline is going to reinforce anything that you want. So if you want to become better, if you want to become fitter, if you want to become faster, if you want to become stronger, it will only subside through discipline. You have to have discipline. So how do you create discipline? You do things that you're uncomfortable doing repeatedly to create new habits. You can only do that through discipline, because if you have discipline, what you're fighting off is cravings for anything, cravings for laziness, cravings for food, cravings for anything that is not as difficult or as uncomfortable as the situations that you're in. So the more you can persist through uncomfortable situations, the more discipline you build. And then what happens is you create a habit out of discipline. And now things that would normally be hard for other people are not hard for you. And they always go, man, how does that guy have so much discipline? And you ask the dude and he's like, this ain't even hard. I just do this. I just do it. You'll
I
hear
do
that.
this. I do
Yeah.
this.
You'll hear that from so many people. I just do it. Like, why do you think Nike's slogan is so $1 billion slogan? Just do it. Well, when you have discipline and you reinforce discipline over time through uncomfortable situations, you'll just do things. You'll just do it. And people will be asking you, how do you do that? I just do it. I just do it.
If I had the most mentally weak individual and I said, you know what, I'm gonna send you to Will Armijo because this guy knows how to get people tough physically and mentally. What would be your first order of business?
My first order of business would be to identify his problems. I would identify his problems and I would help him to realize and recognize his own problems. A lot of people in that situation, they're blind to their own issues. They blame other things. They don't take responsibility. A lot of those people do not take responsibility. So I try to help identify people's problems. And then once we identify the problem, then we introduce a solution into their lifestyle, which eventually will alter their lifestyle. But we introduce a solution and we help the person to understand what that solution is. So if I wanted to make somebody, somebody was mentally weak, couldn't follow a diet, couldn't work out, what I would say is I'd say, okay, we need to create cues. We need to create triggers. What do you like about working out? Those times that you do go work out, what do you like? Oh, well, I like the feeling I get. Like the people like the feeling that they get from running. They like the feeling that they get from this. So we play off of that feeling. So we take the situations and we create new triggers. Okay. So, all right, working out first thing in the morning. It's got to be the first thing you do every day. The very first thing, you're going to lay your clothes out on the kitchen counter, your workout clothes, and it's the first thing you're going to do. You set your alarm for 6 o'clock and you're going to go. And that's what's going to recreate and reinforce the discipline and the habits that they need to build on their mental weakness. So it's introducing new cues and new triggers into what they have come to realize is that their lack of taking responsibility. We want to give them the responsibility and we want to give them the reward of feeling good about something, and that's what reinforces their mental toughness.
Because all the things that you're talking about is psychology, man.
Mm-hmm.
It's psychology, and like you said earlier, it has nothing to do with the food. So I guess the answer to that question is that I asked earlier in regards to discipline. What are one or two things you could do? I guess if I'm hearing you correctly, it would be to not only it would be to number one, recognize what problems do exist and find out what they are, create those cues, and continue to execute those cues and play off of those cues regardless of the situation, day after day, repeatedly, even in uncomfortable situations, until you just do it.
Yeah, because what's going to happen is you're going to feel the reward. And the reward is what people crave. Why do you think freaking Michael Jordan won so many championships and he didn't quit after two or three? Why do you think Michael Phelps went back to the Olympics? Why do you think teams continue to win championships and they don't just stop? Because they crave the reward. When you crave the reward, you create a habit out of winning because you crave the reward. You don't even know how you get there. You just get there instinctively because you're craving something. If you don't have that craving, it will not happen. And that's how our bodies, that's how the psychology and the chemistry of our minds work, is when we sense a reward, we will crave it and we will do anything it takes to get there. That's why you see the people that are waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning and doing more work, because they crave the reward more than you do. And that's why they're going to get it before you, because they crave it more than you do. They don't even know how they're doing it. They're just doing it because they tasted the reward and now they're craving it.
I love it, man. I love the passion. You just hit on a lot of different things, and I don't even know if you hit on. If you, I don't even know that you hit on them. Some deep psychology. I'm serious. I mean, you hit on operant conditioning. You know, I was sitting down with an Olympic performance professional, and he told me you mentioned Michael Phelps. He told me that the biggest crash, the biggest low that an athlete will ever experience is the one that they experience after they win a gold medal. And,
Mm-hmm.
I started thinking about that. I was just like, why would that be? And he goes, it's dopamine, man. It's the biggest drug, man. It's the reward. And then all of a sudden, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks later, no one's saying your name. No one's giving you, pub. No one has a microphone in your face asking you to, answer questions. The reward, the dopamine, I got to get more of it. 3 championships isn't enough. I got to get more of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that is like conditioning at its finest. And so very powerful stuff, man. Very powerful stuff. What are you the most passionate about, man? One thing. What are you the most passionate about?
I'm right now, I mean, my passion lies honestly in seeing people transform mentally. I've seen so many people transform physically that I am passionate about coming up with techniques and methods to help people transform mentally, and I do that through exercise and nutrition. That is what I am passionate about. That is what turns me on right now. Like once I get into that, I dive head first, and there's like nothing that can stop me from actually figuring that stuff out. So that is and that is why I do what I do, and I do what I do with my business, and I don't play a sport anymore. I mean, I feel that mentally, with all the things that we talked about, I mean, you really have the ability to do whatever it is that you want to do. It's just a matter of believing in what it is that you're doing. Just like right now, you asked me, what is your passion? That is my passion because I believe in it. I believe that there is a method and I'm creating it. There's already methods out there, but I'm creating my own method because I have an ability to connect with people. And I believe that I am creating that, and essentially that I'm manifesting it. I'm creating the systems, I'm creating the procedures, I'm creating the cues, I'm creating the techniques because I believe in it. And that could be transferred over into anything, into any sport, into any business, into anything. It's all about your belief system. I mean, at the end of the day, that shapes everything. That even shapes your passion. I mean, everybody's got a passion for something, but how come not everybody pursues it? Because they don't believe in it. That's why.
That's awesome, man. No, what pisses you off? What's the one thing that you just can't stand, man?
I can't stand people who are not authentic. I cannot stand people who are not authentic.
I love it. And it's an oxymoron too, man, because it's almost like you live in the world that exists, like to the fullest and highest degree.
I know. And I could
It's unbelievable.
I could read through everybody. And that's why I won't, that's why I keep one foot in and one foot out, because, it is a nasty, nasty industry. And I see how psychologically broken a lot of these people are, which is why, I did statistically on my number one demographic that I work with in my business, and it's women ages 35 to 60. That's who I primarily work with, because I'm changing their lives on a different level, on a psychological level. I'm changing their lives for things that they actually appreciate in life, to be able to play with their kids and live a healthier life, and not have high blood pressure and things like that. That's impacting people on a different level, which is why I don't necessarily contest prep people, because a lot of them are doing it for the wrong reasons. Now, one of my other passions is sports performance nutrition. That is my specialty, because that's what I grew up obsessed with. So when I get people that want sports performance nutrition, I will take anybody to the next level, because most people have no idea how impactful that is at the next level.
Tell us about the most hardcore individual you ever trained with.
Oh man, you know what?
Like CT Fletcher style, you know what I'm saying? Like who's the most hardcore cat you ever trained with, man?
Man, you know what? I wouldn't say, honestly, I wouldn't say there's anybody that I've ever trained with, like side by side, that wasn't training harder than me. I can honestly say that. I've never met anybody where I just stopped what I was doing and I was like, wow, this dude's on another level, because I train at that level. But when I was in junior college, my very first junior college that I went to, it was a brand new school. We didn't have a lot. We didn't have a strength and conditioning facility, and we worked with these ex NFL. There was one dude that was an ex NFL player, and he had his other buddies that were not NFL, but they were ex football players, and these dudes trained us on a level that nobody was ready for. Nobody. Like,
Just breaking cats off.
oh, they were tearing people apart mentally, like crying. I saw people literally have tears in their eyes when they would tell us some of the stuff that we had to do. And they trained us at such an intensity that we couldn't even vibe on the level that they were vibing on. Like, they were saying things that we were like, how do you even come up with that? Like, where did that even spring from? That
Oh
dude's just on
man.
another level.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. Hey, to close, in psychology, there's a construct called ego depletion, right? Ego depletion, and basically, it's what happens when 90% of people they fail on their New Year's resolutions, and all these people with gym memberships they never use them, and goals aren't met, and things like that. And what ego depletion states is that it's this idea that self control or willpower, you know what I'm saying? Um, it draws on this limited pool of mental resources. And once that pool is dried up, you have ego depletion. And it's ironic because obviously your name is Will, your company's name Will Powered Transformational Systems or Will Powered Transformation Systems. So it's almost like the antithesis of what you're trying to build, right? Ego depletion, willpower. Ego depletion, willpower. How do you? Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, how do you keep logs on the fire, man? How do you keep that thing burning? You know what I'm saying? I'm not really big into the whole motivation word. I don't really like that word. More on that later. But how do you keep those logs burning and that will at a very high level and not suffer from ego depletion?
Yeah, absolutely. So what you come to realize over time is, just like you said, you only have a certain amount of willpower. There's only a certain amount in your body. It's a reserve. It's like the fuel tank in your car. Once you run out, you're out. And that's when everything spirals out of control. So what you have to learn how to do is preserve it and use it most effectively. And what eats away at your willpower that you subconsciously don't know is things like stress, things like your environment, just the vibes that are around you. Negativity eats on your willpower, because it's a constant resistance. When you're having to constantly resist things, your willpower is being depleted without you even knowing it. For example, we'll use a guy in the office, sits in a cubicle every day. If there's a box of donuts next to him every single
Easy,
day, it is the
easy.
smell.
I love
the,
donuts, dog. Easy, easy now.
I have a story about that. The smell of donuts depletes the person's willpower, and they're resisting this, and it's depleting it, so they have no willpower to do anything else. So having some other goal like losing weight, it's not going to happen. Having some other goal of being the best at whatever it is you want to be at, if you constantly have external forces depleting your willpower, you're never going to be able to have the discipline to do what you need to do to be the best at what you want to be or achieve any goal you want to achieve. Just like you said earlier, that's why people can never stick to their New Year's resolutions. You want to know why? Because they make too many of them. They make too many. You can't have, if you have 5 New Year's resolutions, guess what? Each one of those 5 is pulling at your willpower, because your New Year's resolution is something that you're trying to overcome a bad habit or overcome something that you know is not good. If you have too many, just like if you have too many goals, I guarantee you are not going to reach probably any of them. You need to have one focus, one thing at a time. Be the best at one thing. Find the one thing that you can be the best at and focus all of your attention, all of your willpower on having the discipline to be the best at that, and believe that you already are the best at that, and it's going to come. And then it's a spiral. After that, when you sense the reward and you feel what comes from it, guess what happens? You create a habit out of it. And now you're just an unstoppable force.
What are some impactful books or resources that you have personally been influenced by this past year?
Yeah, so I listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to a lot of Eric Thomas. I listen to Eric Thomas occasionally if I want some motivation. There's this guy in the fitness industry. He owns a supplement company. His name's Andy Frisella. And he does a podcast where this dude is just spitting straight fire every day, but it has everything to do with business, but it's just like anything else, business, sports, health, it all circles around the same type of philosophy. So you could listen to this dude and take so many good nuggets from him. As far as books, one of my all-time favorite books that I believe you recommended to me was Relentless. I mean, that book was a game changer for me in just the way that I think of everything, and I constantly reference back that book. I'm also reading a book right now on habit, right? So I sat back and I said, what is the biggest contributor to, it doesn't matter, sports, health, fitness, business, we are creatures of habit. So I'm reading this book right now called The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. And
Duhigg, yeah. Great book.
Yeah, it's an amazing book. So learning about the things that go on in the human body that can contribute to enhancing your performance in anything. I mean, you got to just go for that. You got to put in the time, and you got to make a habit out of doing it. So those are my books right now. Books and podcasts.
Appreciate you spending the time, man. A lot of great information. I know you can be found on online, willpoweredathletes.com, Facebook, your Will Armijo. That's ARMIJO. And then what's your Instagram handle?
Yeah, so my IG is I.am.willpowered. And that's a great area, if anybody wants to follow me. My thing is I try to be as authentic as humanly possible, and anything that I'm giving content-wise is coming from me, my experiences, my knowledge. So I try to use it as a motivational outlet for people, to inspire people. I give real life, real world content, and it's my outlet for, helping people. But yeah, so you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, website, and soon to be a subscription service on top of that. So
That's great, man. That's great, man. Hey, thank you once again, man, for all your insight and knowledge, man. Powerful stuff. I love the passion, man.
that's what it's all about, is passion.